they were waiting for him. And once he got there, they had a plan already in place to, you know, get it going.
It sounds like Bryan Kohberger is having a rough time adjusting to life behind prison walls. Someone in the know says he's upset about being harassed by other inmates. I have the scoop and what one prison expert has to say about the claims.
And the guy's in prison. He killed 4 kids. What does he expect?
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Bryan Kohberger is an admitted mass murderer. There's no doubt about it. But at Idaho's maximum security institution, he's simply known as inmate 163214. But that doesn't mean the other inmates don't know who he is and why he is there. And let me tell you, murdering 4 beautiful college students you've never met doesn't exactly make you a popular guy when it comes to fitting in prison. Yes, prison is full of criminals, but this crime was heinous. It was a heinous, heinous crime. Murdering women and a young man in their sleep and possibly chasing one of them down. It's an act grounded in absolute cowardice. Bryan Kohberger is not a tough guy. He's a coward who apparently derived some type of pleasure out of attacking defenseless women in their sleep. It's sick. Kohberger admitted to murdering Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences on July 23rd, and he was immediately transferred to Idaho's maximum security institution in Kuna, just south of Boise. It took a little more than a week for prison staff to assess Kohberger. He was moved to J Block, where he is kept in a cell for 23 hours per day. He gets out 1 hour of day for rec time outside in an area like this. And anytime he is moved, Bryan Kohberger is in restraints. He also only gets to shower every other day, which he probably doesn't like. An inmate in the Layton County Jail reported to detectives that Kohberger took hour-long showers each day. He's been described as a clean freak, a bit of a germaphobe. And now there's a report that Kohberger is upset about the conditions in J Block, that inmates are harassing him through the vents, and that he has complained about the treatment to prison staff. And now the Idaho Department of Corrections has actually confirmed that Bryan Kohberger has complained about being taunted by other inmates. I'll have more on the DOC's response here in just a little bit. I cover a lot of really scary crime stories here on Crime Fix, and if it's taught me anything, it's that privacy and personal safety absolutely cannot be compromised, especially when it comes to your personal info online. You would be really shocked at how much of your data, like your name, phone number, even your home address, is just floating around the internet for data brokers to find and sell. Ever wonder why you get so many of those annoying spam calls and emails? Well, that's why. Our sponsor, Incogni, is a crucial tool that helps you take back control by automatically identifying which data brokers have your info and then demanding they remove it. Incogni actually found more than 50 brokers with my information, and within days, they started getting me removed. It's really easy to use. Just create an account, authorize Incogni to act on your behalf, and let them handle the rest. And now, Incogni users, they can wipe their info from an even wider range of websites with the unlimited plan's new custom removals feature. All you need to do is copy and paste the links to sites where you've noticed concerning data breaches cropping up and creating issues in your life, and a team of privacy specialists will take care of the rest. The new Incogni Unlimited feature even allows users to customize their data removals and tackle the toughest of breaches with the help of a team of privacy specialists. So if you care about your online safety, and you really should, take your personal data back with Incogni. Use code CRIMEFIX below on the screen and get 60% off an annual plan. So the man who has the big scoop here is Chris McDonough. He is the host of The Interview Room on YouTube. It's a great, great channel. You should check it out. He's also the director of the Cold Case Foundation and a retired homicide detective. So Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. What are you hearing coming out of the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, where Bryan Kohberger appears to be the newest resident of J Block?
Well, it sounds like Bryan is having quite a difficult time because the other inmates in the area that he's at in the J block there, in what they call the special housing at the maximum security prison, they are taunting him through the venting system. And they somehow have created an alliance together to where they are keeping him up at night purposely, but they're kicking the doors, they're whispering or whatever they're doing, but it's driving him absolutely crazy.
So Bryan Kohberger, when he was incarcerated in Ada County and then before that in Latah County, he was probably kept separated from other inmates, of course, for his own safety. The same is happening here because he's in the long-term restrictive housing. But county jail, way different than maximum security prison. And so these inmates in there, who are in there with him, they're the worst of the worst, just like him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, to your point, the county jail system is just established, essentially to get them through, the court system and or up to a year in, let's say, county punishment, right? I mean, they're sentenced to a year in the county jail system, so they'll stay there. But once an individual their case has been adjudicated, they've been sentenced, like Bryan Kohberger, then the jail system shifts over to the Department of Corrections. And so they, at that point, then send him on to the IMAX where he's at right now. And you're right. The inmates in both the county system don't have the, life sentences like they do at the IMAX. So it's a whole different game once he gets over there.
And, they have a lot of time on their hands. They're in cells 23 hours a day, just like Bryan Kohberger, at least if they're in that J block, in the long-term restrictive housing. So this is like, they've got like a new toy. They've got a new focus. And so, what are the taunts that you're hearing that are coming or that are being kind of directed at him, and that they're taking turns, I guess, doing this, having shifts at like directing messages at him and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know the specific verbiage. I just know that they have aligned themselves to do it collectively, which, obviously gives us a little insight to your point, Angenette, that they were waiting for him. And once he got there, they had a plan already in place to, get it going. So I don't know why, other than the fact that he, projected himself as a high profile, inmate. And there are a lot of individuals in that prison doing life just like him that just don't care. And in fact, they're in his house, meaning he's in their house now. And that's a whole different ballgame once you step into that arena.
Mm-hmm. Bryan Kohberger, I could see him as somebody who sees himself as being a little bit superior to the other inmates in J block. I mean, there are no angels in J block. Let's just be clear about that. There are no angels in J block. There are killers, murderers. These are all bad guys, okay? Because they're in long-term restrictive housing, which means they're likely lifers and that they're dangerous or they're being kept separated from others for their own safety, like Bryan Kohberger. However, I could see Bryan Kohberger thinking like, I'm smarter than these guys. These guys are like, all scumbags. And I was getting my PhD in criminology. I was going to be a professor and I may still be a professor. So I'm sure there's some of that going on. They may think that he is weak. I could see them looking at him as being weak because he is somebody who targeted women in their sleep.
Yeah. No. And if you're not careful with, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, in that type of facility, they just, if you attack their respect, for lack of a better term, that's what it's right. The terminology that they use in the prison, right? If you don't respect another inmate, i.e., you try to capitalize on your crimes in the prison, they don't care. They have their own, baggage that they've brought with them. And some of those people and inmates are in there, like you said, are the worst of the worst. And they're in protective custody, not necessarily to keep them safe, but to keep other inmates safe. So they're sitting in those, cells 23 hours a day, and then they give them a 1 hour exercise time and or recreation time out in the center of the pod, potentially in a cage. Okay. And at that point, all the other inmates are looking through their cages at the other lion out in the middle of the pod. And they start kicking the doors, they start yelling, they start taunting. And I don't think Bryan Kohberger mentally had prepared himself for that type of environment. It is literally an environment where people walk in and they look at you sitting in a cage, no different than going to the zoo and looking at a lion.
The trial probably is looking pretty good right now. Maybe he's thinking that. Maybe I should have rolled the dice here. I don't know what he's thinking. But if he's complaining to prison staff, I can't imagine. I mean, prisons basically, as you said, they have their own hierarchies. They have their own kind of politics, if you will. I mean, they're not fun places. Prison is not a hotel. It's not designed to be fun. You are basically put in there, especially in a place like J Block or in the maximum security institution, because you did something really awful and you can't be a part of civilized society. That's why you are there. And so right. I can't imagine the prison staff is going to go down to J Block and hold a little meeting and say, "Hey guys, you got to be nice to Bryan." That's not what's going to happen.
No, you're 100% right. And that's not going to occur in any way, shape, or form. The corrections officers, their first priority is keep people alive within the facility. The second priority there is keep people separated if that means there could be a threat assessment. And so right now, Bryan's sitting in this 23-hour cell, and the staff is thinking, okay, how do we get this person prepared for general population, or do we have to, as a facility and the state of Idaho, start thinking about long-term care for this individual? And so the most they can do right now is separate him from, the taunting, hypothetically, right? That prison was built in 1989. So imagine yourself in just this very large echo chamber. And imagine a bunch of these other individuals in there for life, like him, knowing that he's on his way. And when he gets there, they start, kicking the doors. They start whispering through the vents, and believe it or not, and they can use the toilet in these facilities. They take the water out, okay, and they can actually yell into the toilet, and the system, the pipe system, will carry that messaging into other cells, and that is one creative way that these individuals and inmates communicate with each other. So I don't know if they're doing that as well, but I definitely know that they are, using the vent system.
Everybody said, he's waived his appeals. He can't appeal. There is still a way that he could file a notice of appeal under Garza v. Idaho. I mean, that's the case. I mean, Ann Taylor would be deemed ineffective if she didn't file that notice of appeal. But then Hippler said, well, that could jeopardize your plea bargain. You could be back where you were. We're still waiting for that 42-day clock to run on that. But is this something where maybe he's like, wow, I mean, I don't know. I can't get inside Bryan Kohberger's mind because I don't fantasize about doing what he did. But right. Is there maybe a way where he starts thinking to himself, oh my God, do I go the federal route? I mean, what do you think is going on with this guy?
That's a really interesting question because, with all the meticulous planning that he put into this, and then of course, ultimately, the discovery of the DNA, was kind of like the, put it on the chopping block, right? And the fact that he did not anticipate that, and or as the crime was going down, he panics and that she somehow gets dropped up there in Maddie and Kaylee's room. If he has thought that far ahead, remember he purchases the knife 8 months before the homicides even occur. Okay, so this guy is what we would call an organized offender, and during the commission of the crime becomes disorganized, meaning there are things that he was not anticipating. Xana coming, potentially into the picture, dropping the sheath, etc. And so I don't think he was anticipating having to even be in the court system. But now that he is, okay, and after meeting with his counsel, Ann Taylor, who, in my opinion, did her job by trying to get the death penalty off the table. She did it. That's what she's supposed to do. And whether we agree with it or not, right? It's our system, and that's what she's supposed to do. But now that he's in the holding facility and the max, this appeal process is probably extremely important in his mind to try to get to the next level, whatever that means. Because Bryan Kohberger is about Bryan Kohberger. He doesn't care about anything else other than himself. And so I think that appeal potentially could be on the horizon.
Bryan Kohberger is not a dumb guy. We can argue common sense all day. But
right.
With his case, because he has a certain level of intelligence, do you think that, when they carted him off from Ada County over to, the Idaho Department of Corrections, did he have like banker's boxes full of files and stuff like that? Because wouldn't Ann Taylor have wanted his input as somebody who has a level of intelligence to assist with his own defense on the discovery materials? So does he have the discovery materials?
Well, right during the initial phase, right up until, he pleads guilty, the defense team, as you know, more than anybody, will retain all of those files in his case. Now, because he's a defendant, he gets access to those files during that process. He can look at all the photographs. He can do whatever he wants. Okay, in fact, he's obligated, or the defense is obligated to get his input because it's his defense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But once that case is adjudicated, like it has been now, and he's transferred over to the Department of Corrections, if he's entertaining this idea of an appeal, those documents potentially will go with him. And they may be retained by, the staff, but they can't go through them. And at some point, if he says, hey, I want to see my legal docs, those documents are brought into his cell. And he now has full access to each and every document inside of that case file. Now, and if we think about how grotesque that may sound, just think, this is the guy that slaughters 4 innocent sleeping college students. He was there. He did it. He said he was there. He said he did it. But now he gets the photographs of all of his sick, horrible fantasy work. And he gets to keep those photographs in his cell for as long as the legal process is moving forward.
They're souvenirs.
As souvenirs. It's horrible to even think about for the families to even try to process that piece of the puzzle.
It's horrific. And that may be happening. Chris McDonough, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I want to turn now to Larry Levine. He is the director and founder of Wall Street Prison Consultants, also the author of Prison Politics 101, a how-to guide to get along and get by behind prison walls. Larry, welcome back to Crime Fix. I appreciate you coming back on. I want your response to all of this news about Bryan Kohberger allegedly, I say allegedly because I haven't heard back from the prison yet, being tortured and tormented through the vents by other inmates in J Block.
Yeah, well, he's not being tortured. It's more of psychologically tortured, but this stuff happens. They're telling him they're going to kill him. They're going to get to his family. They're going to rape him. They're yelling through the vents. They're pounding on the walls. They're getting into his head. But when it comes down to it, they can't, there's nothing that can be done. They can't get to him. And the guy's in prison. He killed 4 kids. What does he expect? He doesn't have a popular crime or anything. A bank robber would get more respect than him. A drug dealer. This guy's got nothing coming. And think of it like this. The cops hate him too. There's no question about that. And it's like when I was in custody, we had people that were there for kiddie porn. And they would lie and say they were there for fraud or drugs or something. And then the cops would be the ones that would tell the inmates what they were there for, because the cops didn't like him either. So the inmates could torment him or torment them. So the cops are under no real obligation to do anything to stop this. He's just going to have to suck it up now for the rest of his life. That's a fact.
The reporting is, and, we heard from Chris McDonough earlier in the program, he is getting this word. He has a lot of sources. He's a former law enforcement officer. He is getting the word that Kohberger is complaining about this, that he doesn't like it. This is kind of how prison works.
Well, I mean,
there's you come in and you're a well-known defendant, there's going to be a level of hazing. He is in J Block. He's in long-term restrictive housing. So he is in a cell 23 hours a day. He gets out in the rec yard for 1 hour a day. Every time he's moved anywhere in this prison, he is in restraints, and he gets to shower every other day. So, he's not in a good spot. And I'm assuming, even though there's going to be some bad dudes in J Block, because if you're in long-term restrictive housing, you're there for a long time, and there's a reason you're in those, cells 23 hours a day. They're probably the prison guards are probably like, well, this is just how it goes. You're going to kind of get hazed. You're going to get razzed. And I'm assuming it's their job to keep him safe and to keep everything in order, but they don't care if people are harassing him through the vents.
Kohberger's just going to have to suck it up. Now he's facing the realities of prison life. There was a Supreme Court justice, 50 years ago, I think it was Thurgood Marshall, that said that an inmate's civil rights do not stop at the prison gates. So he has some civil rights, but that's the right to be safe. He is safe. He's locked in a cell. These other people can't get to him. He's filing grievances about being harassed and being hazed. Big deal. Nobody cares. But eventually, he should be concerned about, scared, concerned. He should be concerned about his life for the rest of his life. Because sooner or later, someone will get to him. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer. Look at Whitey Bulger. Look at Ramirez, the Night Stalker. All these people were in secure custody, and they got to every one of them. And maybe this is going through Kohberger's head. I don't know. But every little noise he hears, the rumors, the pounding, and it's all going round and round in his head. And I imagine it is driving him nuts. And somebody will take him out, and that person will get folk hero status for the rest of their life.
I wanted to ask you about that because it is the prison's job, the Department of Corrections, to keep him safe. It's their job to keep all of the prisoners safe. But we know the reality of that. You, especially, Larry, know the reality of that. I've seen it in other high profile cases. They can't always keep these people safe. And sometimes they transfer them out of state. They have these interstate compact deals or what have
Chris
you.
Watts, there's an example.
Yes. And so I saw it. I'm watching it right now unfold in the Pike County massacre case in Ohio. They have transferred 2 of the defendants in that case out of state. We don't even know where Jake Wagner has been transferred because they couldn't keep him safe in an Ohio prison. And he's considered a snitch. So I'm kind of like, I'm thinking to myself, if he's in long-term restrictive housing and he's in a cell 23 hours a day, he gets out in the rec yard 1 hour a day. I'm wondering, does that mean he's kind of isolated in that rec yard? Where could he possibly be in danger? Because maybe like 5 years down the road, they move him into Gen Pop.
No.
Yikes. Where could he be in danger?
Maybe a spaceship will land outside your studio too. There never, ever in a million evers going to put this into general population. They know immediately what will happen to him. But here's what will happen. You brought up an interesting point. Let's go 5 years down the road. It's not as popular. It's not as high profile. Things slip through. Somebody has an opportunity. A door. Oh my God, somebody left the door unlocked. He was left unsupervised in the shower and someone else got in there. Somebody got to his food and put glass or poison in his food. It's just a matter of time that someone will get to him. I mean, you can manipulate staff. In my book, Prison Politics 101, I teach inmates, I sent a copy of it into them. I teach inmates how to manipulate staff, how to manipulate other inmates. So a situation will occur that somebody eventually will get to him, and that's a fact, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Absolutely nothing.
When I look at Bryan Kohberger, this is not somebody who was out on the street doing a drug hit or something to that effect. You know, this is not like a gang murder, a street murder. This is somebody who meticulously in his mind, I mean, he didn't do a good enough job to not get caught, but he did a meticulous job of planning this. He wanted to go into a house and kill people. He was determined to do that. No, and we're learning more details about this. And he's somebody who is like studying to get a PhD. Okay. So, you know, this is not some guy that I think, would typically think of as being a typical J Block resident, right? Okay. So I look at it that way. This is not somebody who thought, I'm assuming he didn't think he was going to get caught or hoped he didn't. Well, so okay. he is like totally probably out of his element, even though he's got the criminal mind and he's in the right place. He is out of his element in J Block.
Absolutely, because he's with real criminals in jail. Correct.
And he is a real criminal, but you know what I'm saying.
He is, but all right, take the person who goes and commits, like I'm getting a lot of people who have PPP fraud from COVID. They mistakenly filled out an application and signed their name. They made poor choices. He knowingly killed these people, and I don't think that Kohberger, as much as I think he's a piece of crap, I don't think he went into that house knowing he was going to kill 4 people, because he had really no idea who was there, what room they would be in. He stumbled upon these people, and he killed people as he went through the house because they knew he was there. They discovered him. Now, do you really think he went there with the intent of killing her? Maybe not. Maybe he went there with the intent of raping her. But in his mind, because the guy's cuckoo, things got out of control. One thing led to another. I'm not fully convinced he went in there with the intent of killing 4 people. I mean, why didn't he kill?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think he went in there to kill 4 people. I think he maybe went in there targeting one, and in his mind. It's spiraled out of control.
Absolutely.
I think he's not as smart as he thinks he is. But I want to go back to you sending him the book. You sent him the book. Did you ever hear back from him?
No, I never heard anything back from him. I know that he got the book. The book's on Amazon because I sent it to Puff Daddy and Luigi and it got returned. I sent it to Just Lane Maxwell. She got it in. And when they return it and they reject it to Amazon, I get a notice of rejection. I never got a rejection notice on Kohberger, so I know he got it. And he has a lot of time on his hands. So maybe he did read it. He should live by my book because this might just save his life one day.
Well, Larry Levine, any final thoughts on Bryan Kohberger behind prison walls and all this talk about him being razzed?
Yeah, I hope he has a miserable existence. He's scared for the rest of his life, and when the time comes that someone can get to him, that he suffers as much as those 4 kids did.
Larry Levine, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Certainly.
Now, after I recorded those interviews, a spokesperson for the Idaho Department of Corrections responded to my email asking about all of this. And he actually said that, yes, Bryan Kohberger has complained about what he considers taunting by other inmates. The spokesperson went on to say that it's very common for inmates in prison to try to communicate with one another. He also said that Kohberger is housed alone in a cell and that the Department of Corrections is committed to providing a safe and secure environment for all incarcerated individuals. So guess what? There you have it. We'll keep an eye on all of this. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. I'll see you back here next time.